On April 29th, 2011, Prince William, in the midst of a sacrament, made Catherine Middleton a princess. He did so when he shared his soul with these words from the Book of Common Prayer. Quote, "And with my body I do thee honor." As he spoke, a whole world came in touch with how a loving commitment can indeed be the good ground about which Jesus speaks in today's gospel, the place where life can burst forth and grow. Another shard of light into the spectrum of the good ground. At the North American Seminary in Rome, where I'm now stationed, when a man is about to be ordained, there is a final evaluation session with the entire faculty present. The student begins with a prayer and then makes whatever statement he wants to share. One student recently looked squarely at the assembled teachers and said clearly, "Thank you. You have wagered your whole lives that it is true that God exists and that He should be announced." The student was proclaiming that with the faculty's help, he himself was truly absorbing the good news about God. He was thanking his mentors for his becoming that enriched and that good ground. He was grateful that yet again the faculty was indeed being the medium of the message. Remember today's first reading, quote, "Just as from the heavens the rain and snow come down, so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth." In the last 8 years, I've had a box seat in observing, in watching, in interiorizing what happens when God's message strikes truly good ground and life, full life, springs forth. The first encounter, his name took me a week to remember. Francis Xavier Nawin Van Twant, a 1970s imprisoned Archbishop of Saigon. 13 years in a communist prison. 9 of those in solitary confinement. Here, in his own words, is what it was like. Quote, "In the darkness of my cell, I saw a hole in the bottom of the wall to let the water run out. So I spent 100 days on the ground, putting my nose in front of the hole so as to breathe. When it rains, the water level rises. Little insects, little spiders, millipedes, earthworms come in from the outside. I let them come. I have no strength left to drive them away, for I am at the edge of insanity." Eventually he was released and got to Rome. John Paul welcomed him and named him President of the Pontifical Commission for Peace and Justice, an ex-con cardinal, very well grounded. A second dump truck came into my life, full of good ground. His name, Father Ragid Ghani, ordained in 2003. As he finished his studies in Rome, he returned to his native Iraq, became pastor at Mosul, martyred one day as he walked to his car. Father Ghani, together with 4 subdeacons. When he studied in Rome, he lived at the Irish College. On the anniversary of his death, his alma mater planned a memorial, a celebration of his life in his honor. His archbishop was invited to come from Iraq and preside at this event. He accepted. 3 weeks before the gathering, word came from the Archbishop's chancellor that the Archbishop could not come to Rome by reason of his own martyrdom. He had been grabbed, thrown into the trunk of a car, and driven off. Meanwhile, in that trunk, His Excellency pulled out his cell phone and called a friend with this message: "Pay no ransom. It will just be used to buy more guns." This while he was speeding across ground that was by his immolation becoming in that very instant truly very good ground. His body was recovered 3 weeks later. Then there was Franz Jägerstatter, a young Austrian who in World War II could not in conscience serve in Hitler's army. Final solution for Franz: the Führer had him beheaded in Berlin's Spandau prison in 1943. When I stood at his grave, more good ground, one summer's day in Western Austria in the early part of this millennium, the scene was silently enlivened by the arrival of one other person, his widow, with that day's floral display. Flash forward now to 2007, 64 years from the beheading. Such a wonderful newspaper photo of his still surviving wife, now present at her husband's beatification several years ago. At age 94, she walked down the aisle exquisitely dressed in a wonderfully red dress, hat to match, looked quite cardinalatial. Good ground is indeed sometimes drenched in red, as in a surviving wife. Red, so strong a reminder of the blast at the cathedral in Baghdad last fall. 70 Catholic Christians killed at Sunday Mass. So many more wounded. Pope Benedict's knee-jerk reaction: send an aircraft to Baghdad, enfold some of those who were injured, bring them to the Gemelli Hospital in Rome. Somehow he found a way to make such a dreadfully sorrowful scene into the good ground of a loving Father. Benedict is the vicar of Christ. Christ, who defines himself as love, and he is. Our chance to be his good ground is to face him this morning squarely, with hearts full of love. Heart speaks to heart. To do this today, especially at the time of receiving Holy Communion, to allow him to fall deeply within us, to take root in our good ground, to help us resist the snares and lies of the world, to keep us from being scorched or withered or choked, but rather to let him celebrate us as his heart speaks to our heart, as he absorbs us. Yes, Augustine reminds us that at the time of Holy Communion we are absorbed by the body and blood, the soul and divinity of Jesus Christ, who loves us in an unlimited way, in an everlasting way. What else would we expect from a friend who is unlimited and who is in that friendship forever?